Question. Hi Kim, I've been an Ascended Master student for 8 years now. I often feel I see many subconscious selves, but resolving them seems difficult and sometimes I get confused, which probably causes another set of selves to pop up. Anyhow, I was watching your video, Non-duality 9, about cognitive dissonance and beliefs. You seem to step back from the role when you said the conscious you steps back and realizes they are both an illusion. Sometimes it seems so easy for you, but I think you have said it does take time to let stuff go. Well, I'm wondering, of course it takes time for all of us. It's just, I've been doing it for quite a number of years, so it becomes easier once you really have locked into the process. It becomes a lot easier because now you know how it works and you essentially know that the cells are basically cut from the same cloth. They all have the same kind of structure and illusions, and once you see it, it becomes easier to step back from it. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't take time. Sometimes, I've said this several times, it can take me months to resolve a self, and there are still selves that I've carried my whole life that I'm just slowly, one at a time, seeing them and letting them go. So it's not that it's fundamentally easier, it's just the more experience you have with the process, the easier it becomes. Well, I'm wondering if you could help me with a bit of my selves and a cognitive dissonance from them. I have a subconscious self that feels threatened when people get aggressive with me, and this has caused me to feel hurt. There can be just a slight trigger. So you have a belief maybe that they shouldn't be doing that. Perhaps maybe you feel they should listen to you, or even they should be accountable for their actions. If we project that others should be accountable, do we place this sense of validation responsibility outside ourselves? If I project that on others, what am I projecting on myself? Does this have anything to do with perfectionism? Well, this is a really important point here. Because what I have said about these subconscious selves is you have, at the surface level, you have a reaction. The self reacts. But in order to resolve the self, you have to go beyond the surface level and you have to go deeper and find what is the belief behind the self. And when you see the belief and see that it's an illusion and see that it's actually harming yourself, that's when you are able to separate the conscious you from the self and let the self die. Sometimes it just happens spontaneously, otherwise sometimes it takes a little more work, and sometimes you have to look at it from different angles. It's not that you can understand this intellectually. It has to come to a point where it becomes an aha experience. You see it. You just see the self, because now you stepped outside of it. So if we take what the person is saying here, because this is a good example. I have a subconscious self that feels threatened when people get aggressive. And so you have a belief maybe that they shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you feel that they should listen to you or even should be accountable for their actions. Yeah? But you see, this is not the belief that created the self. This is the reaction of the self. That's what I'm talking about. So there's two levels of a self. The reaction and the deeper belief. So you can understand, you can say, yeah, but isn't it a belief that other people shouldn't be aggressive with me, or they should listen to me and they should feel accountable for their actions? Yeah, I understand. But this is a belief in the self that's causing the self to react. But if you step back from this, you can go to a deeper level and you can ask yourself a question here. Why do I feel I have to react when other people are aggressive? You see what I'm trying to say? There's a level of reactions, and yes, there may be some beliefs in a self that makes you feel like, I've said it before, you have a self that makes you react with anger. And the self believes, oh, anger is the only way to react, or it's perfectly justifiable. How else could you react but getting angry? But that's still at the level of why the self reacts, and it's justifying the reaction. So if you step a little bit deeper, you see that there's a deeper level, and it's not about the other people and what they are doing or what they should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing. It's that at the deeper level, you feel that you have to react to something on earth. Because this is what created the self. You were put in a situation, and I admit it, this is what I talk about with the birth trauma. We were put in a situation where somebody was very, very aggressive with us, aggressively seeking to put us down or destroy us. We didn't do anything to bring this about. We didn't deserve it karmically. It was pure aggression against us. But the reason why this caused us to create selves was we felt somehow that we had to react to this. And that's why we felt cornered. We felt paralyzed. We felt like, I don't want to react to this, but I have to. And it's those deeper beliefs that we have to uncover before we really see a self. Why did I feel I have to react? Why do you feel that when somebody is aggressive to you, you have to react to it? Why can't you just say, so what? I had a teacher one time in a positive mental attitude who said, the two greatest words in the English language are, so what? But you see, you had a belief so that you couldn't just react with so what. And I'm not trying to blame anybody here. I'm just saying this is understandable that we reacted this way. But as long as we have that belief, we will still be reacting when people get aggressive. And people get aggressive all the time. Look what kind of a planet you're on. So what I'm saying is the only way to be free of this is to go down deeper and deeper until you uncover that belief that makes you feel, I should react. For example, just an example from my own. I always felt that how to explain it? I always had a problem with rejection. If I said something that caused people to ignore me or argue with me or reject me or say you're stupid or that's not true what you're saying and this and that, I would feel rejected. But at the same time, I had an obsessive compulsive desire to say something to people. And when I stepped deeper and deeper to this, I realized that I came to Earth as an avatar. And one of the reasons why I came to Earth was I wanted to help people. So that's why I felt I have to talk to people. And when I see somebody who's suffering, I have to show them there's a way out of your suffering. But on the other hand, I got tired of being rejected and ignored all the time. And so I created this self that felt I have to react. And I feel hurt when people reject me. But I have to somehow explain that away because I have to keep doing it. So you feel like you're stuck. You're stuck in between this drive to help people and you don't want to feel rejected. And so you create you create more than one self there. But you create this conglomerate of selves to deal with that situation. But it all boiled down to me feeling that I should be able to help everybody. And if I couldn't, it was me that wasn't good enough. And so this could tie in with what the person is saying. Does this have anything to do with perfectionism? Because I felt, and in a sense you could say that's a certain perfectionism, I felt if people didn't understand what I was saying, I wasn't good enough. I hadn't presented a good enough argument, so I had to improve myself and get better at it. Because I felt that there should be a way to help everybody. I should be able to find a way to help everybody. And this only resolved for me when I started understanding duality. That when people are in duality, they can deny anything you say. And you cannot prove it. Now, it's again this, if a person was born with yellow contact lenses and had only seen that the sky is green, how could you reason with them and tell them, no, the sky actually is blue? They will say, I'm seeing it with my own eyes. What are you talking about? And when people are in duality, they're seeing things a certain way. And you can come there and you can have a broader vision, you can have a Christ vision. You can't convince them. And that's why you have to change this attitude that what I had to do is I had to realize it was actually a self that felt that I should be able to help everybody. I had to let it die. It just had to die. And I had to accept I can't help everybody. Some people I can help and some people I can't help. And I have in my life met some people, quite a few people, where I can see there was no way I could help them because their minds were so closed by the duality consciousness. There was nothing I could have said, no argument I could have come up with that would have helped them. So I had to ask myself, why am I spending time and attention on people I can't help instead of spending time and attention on people I might be able to help? But what I'm trying to say is I had to come to see that deeper, the deeper set of selves that made me feel powerless because I felt I had to do something, but I couldn't. So it's again this, you feel you have to react to people's aggressiveness. And this actually is also something I recognize because I always had this, the worst thing I could do was to hurt other people's feelings, which is a pretty hard one on a planet like Earth, right? Because I felt that I shouldn't be aggressive with other people. I definitely should not be aggressive. I saw how all of the murder and mayhem is caused by people being aggressive. So I always said, I definitely can't be aggressive. So if somebody accused me of being aggressive, I felt I had to react to that and I had to defend myself and try to persuade them that it wasn't the case and this and that. So you see what I'm saying again, if you have a certain belief that you shouldn't do something, then when people are accusing you of doing that, you feel you have to react to it. Then you're caught in this circle of reaction. And the only way really is to keep going deeper and deeper until you uncover that. Why do I feel I have to react? Why can't I just say, so what? Why can't I just let it go? I mean, you look at your life. There are many situations where other people do things and you have no reaction to it. It just slides off. It's like water on a goose. But there are certain things where you feel, oh, I have to react here. And the reason is, of course, that in the cases where you don't react, there's no self. And in the cases where you react, there is a self. And it's one of those selves that projects at you. You should be able to change this, or you should be able to avoid this, or, you have to react. You have to do something. And it's all just beliefs. It's all just beliefs that you created in the past in a very difficult situation. It's understandable you created it. But you have to come to see that that was then in a different situation. You created this. You had a different level of consciousness, a lower level of consciousness. You're dragging this self with you. It's limiting you because it causes you to react to all these situations, and you're on a crazy planet where there will be lots of these situations. So the goal of the spiritual path is to come to a point where you don't have any reactionary patterns. As Jesus said, the prince of this world cometh and has nothing in me. He has no subconscious self that he can use to pull you into a reaction. Anyway, so there's a little bit more to the question. How do I move on from this? Do we have to uncover the birth trauma to do so? I talk about in my series about the avatar psychology, that many of us came to the planet from a natural planet, and we were very shocked by coming to an unnatural planet, and we received what's called the cosmic birth trauma, and we created this primal self and a lot of other subconscious selves. So yes, it certainly helps to uncover that. I can say from experience, it really helps to uncover, because this was like, the birth trauma was like your reaction to being aggressively attacked here on Earth. Your basic reaction to Earth. And it set the tone for how you relate to Earth and how you have related to Earth ever since. So it really helps to uncover that. It feels like I almost have to experience the pain of the birth trauma. Is this valid? Like immerse myself in it and sit with it? Well, yes and no. I mean, that's a little bit of a... I have a book that I published called Healing Your Spiritual Traumas, and it's given by the Ascended Masters to specifically help people overcome this birth trauma. And there are some exercises in there, especially one by Mother Mary, where she takes you through a series of steps to come to uncover the birth trauma. And so part of that process is not really immersing yourself in the pain, because the Masters have also said many, many times that they have given all the decrees and invocations so that we can invoke spiritual light to uncover the fear-based energy in our emotional bodies. And that's what's causing the pain. The pain is just energy. So you don't really have to sit with it or immerse yourself in it. You can give these invocations and decrees, and there are some in the book, to transmute most of that energy. But it's true that there comes a point, because we all have a tendency, we want to avoid pain. So there does come a point where you have to be willing to look at the birth trauma, even if it causes you pain. It's kind of like I realized at some point that I had certain things I didn't want to look at in my psychology. So I was always trying to avoid them. But these subconscious selves, of course, they were causing me to constantly react, and that was actually causing me pain. So in order to avoid the temporary pain of looking at the self, I was accepting this ongoing pain that wasn't so severe, that I could live with. So at one point I realized this doesn't make sense. At some point I have to be willing to confront it. I have to face my fears and go right into it. And masters actually do talk about this also, that a subconscious self can seem almost like a hurricane, all swirling around, all this energy. But if you go into it, especially after you have given some exercises to resolve some of the energy, you can walk through it and you can get to the eye of the hurricane where it's calm. And that's when you can then start looking at the belief behind the self. I feel I have a matrix of selves that feels vulnerable when I'm not understood or people won't listen, which is probably on an impossible quest to feel validated, to feel seen and heard. It's the desire to feel important, a twin self to feeling validated, perhaps. There's this sense that things don't have to be this way. Well, what I would say here is that this again, I'm pretty sure the person asking the question is an avatar. So you came to Earth to make a positive difference. And what I found was that even beyond the birth trauma, which was the first shock of coming to Earth, I had to examine my motives that I had before I even came here. When I was on a natural planet looking at Earth and deciding to come here. What was it I was hoping I could achieve? And as I said, maybe you want to feel understood, but what I realized was I really wanted to feel that it was worthwhile coming to Earth. So in other words, I felt rejected, ignored by most people on Earth. They didn't want to listen to me, even when I was telling them there was a way out of their suffering. And that made me doubt that I could fulfill my purpose for coming here, namely to make a positive difference. And that meant, in order to overcome that, I had to examine my motives for coming here and say, why did I feel that I wanted to make a difference, or that I should be able to make a difference, given free will, given the chaotic nature of the planet? I mean, maybe I'm not here to directly persuade people, to make them understand me. Maybe I'm just here to show them an example that I can be different. I don't have to react to life the way they do. And maybe it's just a long-term goal, and I was too impatient when I created these selves that feel like I should be able to come up with an argument that could persuade anybody. So what I'm saying is, yeah, you may have a self that wants to feel understood and validated, but behind that is that deeper, you had an intention for coming to Earth. At some point, you were shocked by the birth trauma and you started doubting, maybe I can't fulfill my reason for coming here. And then what am I doing here? Was it pointless for me to come here? All the suffering I experienced, was it just pointless? And you have to then see that that is a self. It's not a self that was created on Earth. It was created on a natural planet when we were contemplating Earth. There was also a self that has gotten very triggered when people project that I should know something. This one has seemed to fade away mostly, and I can just reside in my heart space. Granted, I do realize people's tone can be misinterpreted, but sometimes it's not. Nevertheless, I know it is sometimes true that regardless, it's the self that gets triggered through unwanted criticism and people trying to take stabs at my self-esteem. So it's not even sometimes what they're saying, it's just that they are trying to do that. I guess I feel this shouldn't be happening. It seems there is something to do with feeling stupid, embarrassed, or like I did something wrong. Perhaps I even have another self that gets elated when I do know something. Doesn't the ego love to appear intelligent? Well, yes, the ego, of course, loves to be the master of the universe and know everything. And so there's a very clear projection, very aggressive projection from the fallen beings, especially against avatars. That we should know everything. We should be able, like I said, we should be able to persuade anybody. We should have an argument for everything. We should be able to pull some kind of knowledge out of a hat that would resolve any situation, or persuade people. You have an example of this in the scriptures with Jesus. There's a mob that's about to stone a woman who's been caught in adultery. So Jesus comes in, he doesn't say anything, he starts writing on the ground. And then he gets up and he says that he who is without sin amongst you cast the first stone. And then they all leave. But you see, so we feel we should always be able to come up with some smart remark like that would resolve the situation. But then later Jesus gets arrested and put on trial and crucified. Why couldn't he come up with a smart remark there? Because this doesn't work on the fallen beings. What Jesus did in the first situation was he caused the people to look at themselves, and they were willing to look at themselves, and therefore they walked away. But a fallen being is not willing to do this. If there had been one fallen being among the crowd, he would have cast the first stone, and then maybe others would have followed. So that's why I'm saying with the fallen beings, nothing can persuade them. And this is one of the things we have to realize. No argumentation is going to work there. And so therefore we can't allow ourselves to feel that, oh, I should be able to always know something that could resolve every situation. We just can't allow ourselves. This comes from a self. We have to see that this is a self. I say we can't allow. What I really mean is we need to see that this comes from a self and then resolve the self. Because basically, you could say, if there's one common denominator for avatars, is that we have all gotten ourselves into a situation where we think we have to do the impossible. We just don't see it. And it's individual for each one. I can see mine is a little bit different from what the person is describing here. But we all basically think, oh, as an avatar, I should be able to do this. But then you look at what you should be able to do, it's actually impossible. It can't be done. Partly because they're fallen beings, partly because this is an unnatural planet, partly because of the duality consciousness. As I said, you can prove anything. Any argument you can come up with, people can reject it when they're in duality. So basically what we have to stop doing as avatars is to stop demanding of ourselves that we should be able to do the impossible. And that can be said to be a form of perfectionism. And the person is saying, how do we see with clarity and let it go? Sometimes this is clear, but it feels very jumbled. Seemingly this is clear, but it feels very jumbled. Yes, it will feel so in the beginning. It did for me also. It took me years and years and years to resolve some of these deeper things. But I just kept going at it. Not all the time. It's not like I was getting up in the morning and say, oh, I had to spend 4 hours thinking about this. But it was always in the back of my mind. I've always had this tendency that if there's a problem or some issue I'm dealing with, I think about it intensely, I may study it, but then I put it on the shelf. I just put it back. And then I allow some time to go so my higher self or the Ascended Master can give me some greater clarity. And then I let that go again. And then gradually over time, I get greater and greater clarity until at one point I have a breakthrough. I say, oh, now I saw and I see it. Now I see this deeper belief. And it may take time. It may take months or years to get there. But I have done this for so long that I just made peace with the process. And I know it works. And I know it's just a matter of, it takes a little time. And then one day the clouds are going to part and a ray of sunshine from Mother Mary or Jesus or Saint Germain is going to shine through. And oh yeah, now I see it. And it obviously works for other people. I know many people it's worked for. And I believe it can really work for most people if you're willing to look at yourself. And the person obviously is, or he or she wouldn't ask the question.